The music floated through the air like silk, gentle, elegant, and distant. It was the kind of melody meant to make people forget themselves, to dance and drink and smile as if the world had never hurt them. Golden light spilled from chandeliers, scattering across the ballroom like liquid stars. Laughter rippled through the room, blending with the clinking of glasses and the faint perfume of white roses that adorned every table. But in the farthest corner of that shimmering celebration sat a woman apart from it all. Elena Torres had the kind of presence that drew attention even when she wasn't trying. Her dark hair was pinned perfectly, her emerald green gown shimmered under the light, and the simple diamond earrings she wore reflected wealth and restraint. People knew who she was, CEO of Torres Innovations, one of the youngest female executives to make Forbes's top list. Her name carried the weight of success and resilience. Yet, tonight, no one seemed to remember that. Their eyes slipped past her too quickly. They smiled politely, offered quick hellos, and returned to their circles of laughter. It wasn't her status that pushed them away. It was the wheelchair. She could see it, the hesitation, the faint flicker of discomfort before their tone shifted into something brittle, polite, and safe. She had grown used to it in the years since the accident. Still, even after all this time, it stung. Elena traced her finger along the rim of her wine glass, the red liquid untouched. She had come because the groom was a former employee, one she had mentored when he was still coding in a cramped apartment. She had written him a check that changed his life, and now, years later, he'd invited her to share in his joy. But joy was something she'd forgotten how to hold. The band switched to a soft jazz tune, and the dance floor filled with couples. Their movements were graceful, synchronized, effortless. Elena watched them, her chest tightening as she remembered the feeling of moving freely, the weightless glide of dancing, the thrill of surrendering to rhythm. Before the crash, she had loved to dance. It had been her escape, her rebellion against the rigid order of corporate life. Now, even music felt like a memory she was afraid to touch. CEO Torres, you made it. A voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to see Marta, the wedding planner, approaching with an overbright smile. We're so honored you're here, Marta said. Her eyes darted quickly, once, to the wheelchair before she masked it with a practiced grin. I wouldn't miss it, Elena replied evenly. Of course not. Well, please, enjoy the evening. And if you need anything at all, just ask. I will. But they both knew she wouldn't. Marta left, and Elena's smile faded with her. She sighed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She had mastered the art of composure, the perfect smile, the polite tone, the graceful deflection. But tonight, even that felt heavy. Her gaze wandered to the buffet table. A man was crouched there, trying to reason with a little boy who appeared to be holding 3 cupcakes and a dangerous amount of determination. Max, we've talked about this, the man said gently. 3 cupcakes mean trouble later. But Daddy, this one has stars. The boy insisted, clutching a blue frosted cupcake like treasure. Elena couldn't help the small laugh that escaped her. The sound felt foreign, unexpected. The man looked up at the noise. Their eyes met across the room. He wasn't dressed like most of the men there. His suit was slightly wrinkled, the tie loose around his neck. His hair, dark and wavy, seemed perpetually 1 second away from being ruffled by the wind. But there was something captivating about him, something genuine. Instead of glancing away, he smiled. Not the polite, nervous kind she was used to, but a real one, easy, open, almost mischievous. Her heart stumbled. She quickly looked away, pretending to adjust her dress. When she dared glance back, he was whispering something to the boy, who promptly grinned and began walking straight toward her. Before Elena could process what was happening, the man and the boy were standing right in front of her. Hi, the man said. You look like you could use some sugar reinforcements. Elena blinked, startled. Excuse me. He lifted the cupcake, offering it like a peace treaty. Blue frosting. Star sprinkles. I promise it's scientifically proven to improve weddings by at least 87%. The little boy smiled brightly. Daddy says cupcakes make people smile. Are you sad? Elena's lips parted, then softened into a faint smile. No, sweetheart, just thinking too much. The man laughed. She's being polite, Max. Adults always say that when they're sad. Elena laughed too, a small, genuine sound that surprised even her. You're not very good at small talk, are you? Terrible at it, he admitted. I'm Daniel Hale, by the way. And this sugar monster is my son, Max. She extended her hand automatically. Elena. He didn't hesitate. He didn't look down at her chair. He just shook her hand, firm and steady. So, Elena, Daniel said, glancing around. Bride's side or groom's side? Investor's side, she replied with a faint smirk. He chuckled. Ah, so you're the reason we have good food instead of dry chicken. Maybe, she said. And you? Groom's college roommate, single dad, lover of free food and questionable dance moves. His tone was so effortlessly warm that she found herself wanting to keep the conversation going. It wasn't often someone made her forget the weight of how others saw her. So, you and Max are quite the team, she said. The best, Daniel said proudly, resting a hand on his son's shoulder. He's the boss, really. I just handle payroll and snacks. Max beamed. Daddy makes the best pancakes. Do you like pancakes? Elena smiled. Very much. Especially with strawberries. Max gasped. Me too. Daddy, she's cool. See, told you people who like pancakes are the best kind. Daniel winked at her. Elena felt something loosen inside her. She couldn't remember the last time someone had treated her like this, like she was simply a woman, not a fragile miracle of survival. They talked for a while. About Max's obsession with outer space, about Daniel's small design business, about how Elena loved old books and the smell of rain. Daniel had an easy charm that made time slip away. When the band began a slow, romantic song, Daniel glanced toward the dance floor, then back at her. Max asked me something a few minutes ago, he said. Oh, she asked. He wanted to know why you weren't dancing. Elena looked at her hands. Because I can't, she said softly. Not the way everyone else can. Daniel crouched beside her wheelchair so they were eye to eye. Maybe everyone else just never learned to keep up, he said quietly. Her breath caught. No one had ever said something like that. Not without pity, not without that careful tone people used when they wanted to sound kind but couldn't hide discomfort. But Daniel said it like it was simple truth. He looked at her hands resting on her lap, then gently held one. May I? The warmth of his touch startled her. He didn't move her chair, didn't offer to help her stand. He simply held her hand as if that was the most natural thing in the world. If you can't dance, he said softly, then I'll just sit this one out too. Fair deal. Her eyes shimmered. Why would you do that? He smiled. Because I think the best seat in the house is right here. Something inside her cracked. The armor she had built around herself, the careful distance she kept from everyone. In that moment, under the soft light and the hum of music, she let herself breathe again. They sat there, side by side, as the world spun around them. Max munched happily on his cupcake, occasionally humming along to the song. Daniel and Elena talked about small things, favorite movies, worst business meetings, childhood dreams. But beneath every word, there was something else, an unspoken warmth that neither dared to name yet. When the wedding finally began to quiet, guests drifting toward the exit, Daniel turned to her. You know, he said, I wasn't even supposed to come tonight. Oh, yeah, my babysitter canceled last minute, but the groom insisted. Said it'd be good for me to get out. I think he was right. Because of the cupcakes, she teased. He grinned. Because of you. Her heart stumbled again. You just met me. True, he said, but sometimes, meeting someone feels like remembering something you didn't know you lost. Elena looked at him, at the warmth in his eyes, at the small boy leaning against his father's arm, sleepy but content. For the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. Daniel, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. He took a small breath, nervous now. This might sound crazy, but, would you be my date? Her eyes widened. Your date? Yeah, he said, smiling. Not for tonight. I already kind of crashed your corner, but maybe for something normal. Coffee, dinner, a walk, well, a roll, if you'll let me tag along. She stared at him, unsure if she'd heard correctly. You're asking me out? Yes. Why? She asked before she could stop herself. Because you're fascinating, he said simply. And because Max thinks you're cool. And because I haven't smiled this much in a long time. For a long moment, Elena said nothing. Her throat tightened, her heart raced. Every instinct told her to retreat, to smile politely, to protect herself from the disappointment that always came when people realized who she really was now. But then Max yawned and leaned his head against her arm, his small voice murmuring, "You should come with us, Miss Elena." She felt something warm spread through her chest, something that scared her and comforted her all at once. She met Daniel's gaze and smiled softly. "Okay," she whispered, "I'd like that." And in that quiet corner of a crowded wedding, the woman who'd built empires but forgotten how to feel alive found something she never expected. Hope, gentle and real, held in the hand of a man who didn't see her chair, only her. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows of Elena's penthouse apartment, casting long shadows over the polished marble floor. She sat in her study, laptop open, coffee untouched, staring at the blinking cursor on an empty document. For someone who had made a career out of decisive thinking, she had never felt so unsure. Daniel Hale, his name alone had the strange power to unravel her calm. She hadn't stopped thinking about him, or his son, since last night. Every time she replayed the moment when he'd held her hand, she felt the same quiet warmth spread through her chest. She had promised to meet him again. It was a simple promise, yet it terrified her. Elena was a woman who controlled everything: meetings, markets, mergers. But this, whatever this feeling was out of her control. And for someone who had built her world on structure and order, that was dangerous. Still, when her phone buzzed and she saw Daniel's name appear, she didn't hesitate. "Daniel, Max wants to know if you like ice cream. He says it's important data." Her lips curved into a small smile. "Elena, I do. Strawberry." A second later, "Daniel, excellent. He says that means you're officially cool. Also, are you free this afternoon? There's a small park near my office. Max insists on bringing his new friend." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She should have said no. She had work, meetings, a schedule packed with obligations. But when she looked at her reflection in the dark laptop screen, she didn't see the CEO of Torres Innovations. She saw a woman who wanted to live again. "Elena. What time? The park was small but alive with color, the kind of place where children's laughter mixed with the rustle of trees. The scent of grass and melting ice cream filled the air. Elena rolled along the paved path, her dress fluttering softly in the afternoon breeze. Daniel was already there, sitting on a bench with a paper bag of cones and Max chasing pigeons nearby. When he saw her, his face lit up with an unguarded smile that made her heart skip. "You made it," he said, standing. "Barely," she said with mock seriousness. "I had to fight off 2 meetings and a dozen emails. Sounds exhausting. Good thing I brought reinforcements." He held up 2 ice creams, 1 chocolate, 1 strawberry. "You remembered," she said softly. "I try to pay attention," he replied, handing it to her. They sat together, the silence between them easy, filled with the kind of comfort that didn't need filling. Max returned, breathless and red-cheeked, proudly holding a feather. "Miss Elena, look, it's from a magic bird." Elena smiled, taking the feather carefully. "Then I'll keep it for luck." Daniel watched the exchange, something tender flickering in his eyes. He hadn't expected her to fit so effortlessly into their small world, yet somehow, she did. After a while, Max ran off again to play, and the 2 adults sat quietly watching him. "So," Daniel began, "I've done some research." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Research? About you?" he said with a grin. "Apparently, you're kind of a big deal." She groaned softly. "Please tell me you didn't Google me." "Guilty," he said. "I was curious. You've built an empire, Elena. That's incredible." She gave a small shrug. "It was a way to survive." He looked at her. "What do you mean?" Elena hesitated. Most people wanted to hear about her success, not her pain. But Daniel wasn't most people. 3 years ago, she began quietly, "I was in a car accident. I was driving home from a conference. It was raining, I was tired. A truck ran a red light." She swallowed hard, her voice trembling slightly. "I woke up in the hospital. The doctors told me my spinal cord was damaged. I couldn't feel my legs." Daniel said nothing, just listened, his gaze steady and soft. "For a while, I thought my life was over," she continued. Everything I had worked for seemed meaningless. I didn't want to see anyone. Didn't want to talk. I thought I'd never be more than what that chair made me. She looked away, blinking back the sting in her eyes. Then one day, I realized something. People pitied me because I let them. So I got up, in every way I still could. I went back to work, built new systems, designed accessibility initiatives. I rebuilt my company, and myself. Daniel nodded slowly. That's not survival, Elena. That's strength. Her lips curved faintly. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way. Maybe not, he said softly. But strength doesn't always feel strong. Sometimes it just looks like showing up. Like today. Elena looked at him, really looked, and something inside her softened. They spent the rest of the afternoon talking, about everything and nothing. Max joined in occasionally, offering random facts about space or dinosaurs. Daniel made her laugh until she nearly dropped her ice cream, and for a few hours, she forgot about everything else. As the sun began to sink, Daniel helped Max pack his toys. Elena watched them, her heart tugging at the simple beauty of it. This little family, this quiet life untouched by the chaos of boardrooms and business wars. When Daniel turned back to her, there was a question in his eyes. You know, he said, I'm starting to think you're dangerous. Oh, she teased. Why's that? Because Max has already declared you his favorite person, he said with a smile. And I'm not far behind. Her breath caught. The world felt suddenly smaller, quieter. You're serious. I'm not the kind of man who says things I don't mean. Elena looked down at her hands. Daniel, my life isn't simple. Neither is mine, he said. But maybe it doesn't have to be perfect. Maybe it just has to be real. She didn't know how to answer that, so she didn't. Instead, she smiled softly and said, maybe. Days turned into weeks. Coffee turned into dinners. Dinners into late-night phone calls that stretched past midnight. Daniel learned that Elena snorted when she laughed too hard. She learned that he was secretly a brilliant artist who designed furniture for children with disabilities. Max adored her. He'd call her on video chat, excitedly showing her his latest Lego masterpiece or asking her to help name his imaginary rocket ships. For the first time in years, Elena's world felt whole again. But as their connection deepened, so did her fear. One evening, while they were sitting on her balcony overlooking the city, she turned to him. Daniel, do you ever think, maybe this can't last? He frowned. Why would you say that? Because people like me, she said quietly, we don't get fairy tales. We get headlines, pity, and polite admiration, but not love that stays. He reached over, gently touching her cheek. You're wrong, he whispered. You don't need a fairy tale, Elena. You need something real, and I'm not going anywhere. Her throat tightened. You don't know what you're signing up for. Then tell me, he said. Tell me everything, and let me decide. She stared at him for a long moment, her heart trembling with the fragile, terrifying hope that maybe this time, someone meant it. A month later, Daniel and Max arrived at a charity gala hosted by Torres Innovations. Elena was the keynote speaker. As she rolled onto the stage, dressed in an elegant navy gown, she spotted them in the crowd, Daniel with his proud smile, Max waving both hands wildly. Her speech that night wasn't about profit or technology. It was about rebuilding. About how the human spirit could adapt, survive, and still find beauty in broken places. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Daniel's eyes were wet. Afterward, he found her backstage. You were incredible, he said. She smiled softly. Thank you. I mean it. You didn't just talk about strength. You showed it. Maybe, she said, but it's easier when you have people who believe in you. He stepped closer, his voice low. I do. Every day. And before she could reply, he leaned down and kissed her. It wasn't rushed or uncertain. It was steady, deep, and full of the promise she had been afraid to believe in. Max's small voice interrupted them from across the hall, shouting, Daddy. Are you kissing Miss Elena? They broke apart laughing, both turning bright red. Elena covered her face, still smiling. Well, I suppose the secret's out. Daniel laughed. Guess so. But I'm okay with that. Months later, As autumn painted the city gold, Elena wheeled down the park path with Max riding his bike ahead and Daniel walking beside her. The sun glowed through the trees, and the air smelled of cinnamon and leaves. "Miss Elena, watch," Max shouted, wobbling but grinning. "No training wheels." Elena clapped her hands. "You're amazing, Max," Daniel chuckled. "He's been practicing all week for this." They stopped under a tree where golden leaves fell around them like confetti. Daniel took her hand, his thumb brushing gently against her skin. "You know," he said softly, "that night at the wedding, I wasn't planning to talk to anyone. I felt out of place, like I didn't belong there." She smiled. "Funny. That's exactly how I felt. And then I saw you," he continued. "And I thought, maybe we both just needed someone who understood what it's like to feel unseen." Elena's voice trembled. "You see me, Daniel. You really do." He smiled. "Always." She looked up at him, her heart full in a way it hadn't been in years. "I think I'm in love with you." He leaned down, kissing her forehead softly. "Good," he whispered, "because I've been in love with you since the night you took that cupcake." She laughed, tears shining in her eyes. "You're ridiculous." "Completely," he said, "but I'm yours." Max ran up just then, holding out another feather. "Look, Miss Elena, another magic one." She took it gently, smiling through her tears. "Then I guess that means we're really lucky." Daniel squeezed her hand, the sunset painting them both in gold. And for the first time in a long time, Elena didn't feel broken or incomplete. She felt whole, loved, seen, and alive. Because sometimes, love doesn't come when life is perfect. It comes when someone looks past the pain, past the chair, past the walls, and simply says, "Will you be my date?"